So, got a fun show planned for everybody today. Glad to have you here with us. We got a big day today because we got ZASLOW Show 2.0 going on right now. And tonight, we're back on ESPN Radio, co-hosting ESPN Radio Game Night, along with Cleveland's Emmett Golden. So, Emmett Golden, myself, filling in for Q Myers tonight, ESPN Radio Game Night, 10 p.m. East. I've learned that. You got to say East now because people are listening from all over the country. Eastern time zone. 10 p.m. East, so 10 p.m. to 1 a.m. We'll have to mix in a little afternoon schluff here, make sure we're all set and ready to go. But we got a fun night tonight, all right? Because we got the Panthers in action, we got the Heat in action, then I'm on ESPN Radio, so you guys are listening to me tonight after we watch the Heat and Panthers get double dips. You know what I'm talking about. So we got a good sports night going on here this evening. We're going to talk to Kenny Albert, all-time great play-by-play man. NHL on TNT tonight. Panthers and Penguins national broadcast. Kenny Albert's on the call alongside Eddie Olczyk and Brian Boucher. So Kenny Albert will stop by. He's always great. We'll pick his brain a little bit as well about the Super Bowl, all the fallout there. I can't believe I turned on the television this morning and we're still talking about overtime. We're still talking about the 49ers and overtime. And for the life of me, see, I'm excited for ESPN Radio Game Night tonight. I've never hosted with Emmett Golden, although I know who he is. He's very good. I'm excited, though, to do this show with him tonight. I got to have some type of back and forth with somebody about the overtime. For the life of me, I can't understand people who are so hung up on the 49er players not knowing about overtime. How is there no pushback when I'm watching this on television? Why does it matter? I'll ask Kenny Albert about it, but I'm looking forward to talking about that tonight. I don't understand why it's a big thing. I can't believe we're still talking about this. All right, you know what? You know how we do now at the start of every show. We get things rolling with a little bit of what happened last night. All right, so there's a few things we want to get to. First off, I might as well get the college basketball out of the way. Syracuse beat number 7 UNC last night, 86-79. UNC now has actually lost 2 of their last 3. They also lost to Clemson last week. So 2 losses in their last 3 games for UNC, both of them to unranked teams. And the one win sandwiched in between there was a 3-point win against unranked Miami. So UNC apparently not playing so great right now. As far as the NBA goes, it's a pretty busy pretty busy night last night. But really one thing grabbed my attention. And obviously we'll get to the Heat in a moment here. But the Thunder beat the Orlando Magic last night, 127-113. Magic have really come back down to earth. They probably can't wait for the All-Star break. But the big story from that game last night, Shaq. Shaq was on the call last night. You know, it was a Tuesday night TNT game. So Shaq was an analyst there because they were honoring Shaq as the first ever Orlando Magic player to have their jersey retired. So Shaq was on the call, and then post-game, they did the jersey retirement ceremony. I hope everybody stuck around. That's kind of weird when you do it post-game, because it's late, people leave and go home, it's late night. The Heat do it at halftime. Some franchises, though, do it post-game. Anyway, like Dwayne Wade's, I believe, was post-game, because you wanted that to be a long ceremony. But anyway, Shaq had his jersey retired in Orlando. This is actually at halftime where the TNT crew and Vince Carter specifically, they were asking Shaq about his feelings. And here, Shaq told you what an honor it is.
Out of all the ceremonies, this is the most exciting, and let me tell you why. At LSU, I knew it was going to happen because, you know, the dean, Joe Dean at the time said, hey, man, you're one of our greatest players. If you come back and get your degree, you're going to retire your jersey. So I knew it was going to happen. The Lakers, I kind of forced it to happen because I wanted my name to be up there. Orlando, me playing here 4 years, going to the finals once, going to the ring of ceremony, and that being it, and nobody else having their jersey retired. I never thought this day would happen. It means a lot. It's a lot of great players that played here, including you, Vince, Grant Hill, Penny Hardaway, T-Mac, Nick, D. Scott. So, you know, to be the first is definitely an honor.
All right, so obviously it's a tremendous honor, and it is a big surprise because it's almost 30 years later. I mean, he left there in what? I think it was 97 he left there. They were in the finals in 95. He played one more year in 96. So he left in 96. It was almost 30 years since he left the Magic. And what he says there about he knew it was going to happen at LSU. He kind of made his way for it to happen in LA, although, come on, like, that was happening no matter what. He didn't mention Miami there because it actually goes against what, the love he was given to the Magic there about how special this one is to him because he didn't think it was going to happen. He didn't know it was going to happen. He didn't know Miami was going to happen either. The Miami one was essentially an olive branch between both parties because things, like it usually goes down with Shaq, don't end on a positive note. And it was essentially an olive branch where we love you, we want you to be part of the organization, we're retiring your jersey, and Shaq loved that, and it was a great thing, and I'm a big Shaq guy, so awesome. So that's why he didn't mention the Heat there, because it kind of goes against the point that he's making, but there'd be no reason for him to believe that his jersey was going to get retired by the Magic. And it does strike me as a little bit odd. So let me start by saying this. I have no criticism of the Orlando Magic for putting Shaq, his jersey, in the rafters. You could say, hey, he only played there for 4 years. You could say, hey, you waited 30 years for this to happen. You can be critical of it. You could say, he never even won there. He broke their hearts when he left. He crippled their franchise when he left. Why are you retiring Shaq's jersey? I think Heat fans are the last people who can be critical about a franchise retiring a player's jersey. Not because Udonis Haslem didn't deserve to have his jersey retired, but the point would be, this isn't the Hall of Fame. This isn't an NBA decision. This is a team decision. This is a franchise who gets to decide how they want to run their franchise. So if the Heat decide that Udonis Haslem's jersey is worthy of being raised to the rafters, which of course it is, that's up to them. If the Orlando Magic, no matter how silly we think it looks, believe that it is worth them raising Shaq's jersey to the rafters, that's up to them. It's the team's decision. So I think being critical of what the Orlando Magic decide to do in that spot is stupid. It is not up to you. It's not up to anyone outside the organization. It's up to the team. So in that regard, I have no problem with the Orlando Magic raising Shaq's jersey to the rafters. Now, the part that I do think is weird is I think that they've been a franchise now for, if the Heat this year is year 35, they've been a franchise for 34 years. So in 34 years, they've never had a jersey retired, the Orlando Magic. And I think what's happened there is they've gotten to a place where it's, we don't even have any championships. We got to have some type of history. I mean, like, it sucks if you're a franchise that's been around for that long and you got nothing hanging from the rafters. You don't have any real type of history. You don't look like a franchise that's worth anything. And look, let's be honest, that is the case for the Orlando Magic. But they would like to look like they have some type of history, which is why I think it's weird that they've waited 34, well, I mean, not going to have it in the first year, but why they've never had a jersey retired in 34 years. And the fact of the matter is, there are a couple guys whose jerseys should have already been retired. Matter of fact, maybe it's because he's not technically retired yet, but it would make more sense for Dwight Howard's jersey to be retired before Shaq. But you see, the Orlando Magic aren't going to do that because you got this weird beef between Shaq and Dwight Howard. And for them to do that, it's going to be like insulting to Shaq if Dwight Howard is up there in the Raptors before him. I know that sounds so stupid, but it's the truth. There are other players, though, who you would think should have their jersey up there already, and the Magic just haven't done, like Penny Hardaway, anyone? He was amazing, and he was amazing for the Orlando Magic. The Shaq thing, I think, is weird for them to have his jersey up there because Not even just because he only played 4 years to the franchise. And then you can say ZASLOW. He only played here 4 years, which, by the way, he played 4 seasons for the Heat. He was only here 3.5 years, but he won a championship. He won a championship with the Heat. And you could say what you want about when Riley and then Alonzo Mourning got here, and that's when Heat culture started. But this really became a championship team when Shaq got here. Things changed in a big way when Shaq got here. So Shaq's jersey going in the rafters to the Heat, I think is a no-brainer. But he was only in Orlando for 4 years. If you're only with a team for 4 years, I would say you probably got to do some kind of winning for the jersey to go in the rafters. Again, this is Orlando. This is their decision. They can do whatever they want. It's not up to the NBA. It's not like a Hall of Fame. It's up to the team, all right? And on top of the thing that I think really makes it weird with retiring Shaq's jersey, not just that he didn't win there, not just that he only played there 4 years, but when he left, it crippled their franchise. Crippled them. And that, to me, makes it tough to swallow the idea of his jersey being up in the rafters. Hey, Shaq's jersey's up in the rafters. He didn't win here, spent a very short period of his time in the NBA here, and he completely crippled us as a franchise. But you better not wear his jersey. You better not wear his number. Like, that to me is kind of weird. Again, the team can do whatever they want when it comes to retiring a jersey. I'm not going to be critical of that part. But if we're going to be honest, I think it's bizarre. I think it's bizarre. I don't think Orlando Magic fans, first of all, if you have a certain age, if you're 30 years old, you never saw Shaq. Well, that's not exactly true. If you're 25, you never saw Shaq play for the Orlando Magic. Probably if you're close to 30, actually. Because if 30, you were born in 94, Shaq left in 96, 2 years old. Yes, let's go 30. If you're 30 years old, you never saw Shaq play for the team. And Magic fans, I would guess, they're out there. Magic fans are out there. I would guess that if you are a Magic fan from day one, you don't have great things to say about Shaq because he crippled the franchise. When he left, you're probably mother effing him all the way to the heavens. So, again, team can do whatever they want. It's up to them. But I'm with Shaq. It's a surprise. It's surprising that his jersey was retired. And so that right there to me, a little bit of what happened last night, the college basketball, UNC lost. For me, the biggest story there as far as the NBA was Shaq there and his jersey being retired. Good. Love Shaq. Great honor. I think it's weird for the Magic where they want to get something up there. And like I tell you, we had a similar thing here with the Florida Panthers. The Florida Panthers up until a couple years ago, and this is year number 30 for the Panthers. So up until a couple years ago, so you're 27 or 28, they had no jerseys retired. No Stanley Cup championship banners, of course. You got the one, as of a couple years ago, Eastern Conference championship banner back, and it was 1996. It was forever ago. And no jerseys retired. Matter of fact, the names that are up there are Bill Torrey, okay, for first ever president of the team, and Wayne Huizenga. No actual, jersey numbers, if you will. No players. And they then finally retired Roberto Luongo's jersey, which makes all the sense in the world because it was right after he retired, and it was deserving. But Shaq, it was almost 30 years ago. And I don't think the Orlando Magic fan has great things to say about Shaq. Panther fan, of course, has great things to say about Roberto Luongo. So, a little bit weird to me. All right, the Heat last night took that ass against the Milwaukee Bucks. 123-97. That's what you're talking about. I put on the Heat last night. I'm blown away by this performance. They wiped the floor with the Bucks from start to finish. They never trailed in this game. They're up double figures in the first quarter. They're up double figures the entire game. The Bucks had like a chance late in the second quarter where they cut it to 8, I think. And the Heat responded. They ended up leading by, I think, 17 at halftime. Big performances from Duncan Robinson, 23 points, coming off of that very dirty play from that dirty player, Jaylen Brown. Duncan, 23 points, 6 for 8 from 3. Bam Adebayo, triple-double, 16 points, 12 rebounds, 11 assists. But the story of the game, well, there's a couple stories of the game. First story of the game, Nikola Jovic. 24 points, 7 rebounds, 8 for 13, 5 for 8 from 3. He got the start because you still have no Rozier. You still have no Butler. So it was, you had Jovic starting in place. Who was the starting group last night? Hero, Robinson, Jovic, Adebayo, and Martin. So you had Jovic and Robinson starting in place of Rozier and Jimmy. And that backcourt, now look, Rozier's a fine enough three-point shooter, but that backcourt of Hero and Robinson, deadly because the way that it opens up the floor. But I really believe Niko Jovic's performance last night, I think that was a big deal. You don't want to see more of him? 24 points, stretching the floor. He can get to the basket. He can pass the ball. And look, you want to see more of him. The staff knows. They see him every day. And as it turns out, because what are we talking about here? We're 2/3 of the way through the season. As it turns out, the way that they have handled him has been perfect. Look at how he's performing at just 20 years old in only spot duty. Got an opportunity, tapped him on the shoulder last night, went out and kicked ass, was a major difference maker. They clearly, they've done it again. They are developing this kid who clearly has major talent. And because of their patience, because of how hard they have gotten him to work, we're going to get to a place, probably not this season, but we're going to get to a place where I think clearly Niko Jovic is a player for this team. And you've been waiting for that 6'9", 6'10" guy who could stretch the floor to put next to Bam Adebayo. This is the guy. It may not be this year. It's probably not this year. But we're looking from a macro perspective, big picture-wise, long-term. You have to consider that Niko Jovic is going to be that guy. I think last night's performance was a big deal. They see him every day. They clearly know what they're doing when it comes to developing their young players. Maybe it took a little longer than you would have wanted it to because Jaquez Jr. is thrown into the fire right out the gate at the start of the year. But they're playing the long game here with Niko Jovic. And clearly, the way they have handled it is to perfection. That's the big story from last night. The other big story from last night is no one is afraid of this Milwaukee Bucks team. Get the fuck out of here. First of all, Eric Spoelstra versus Doc Rivers, blowout, like usual. Blowout. There was one point in the game, they were bombing away from 3 the entire game. And Doc Rivers, he's supposed to fix the defense. Even though I'm pretty sure he's an offensive guy. Doc Rivers is supposed to fix the defense. And at one point, even though the Heat were bombs away from 3, you saw when Doc switched to a zone defense, went to a 2-3 zone defense. I mean, again, Eric Spoelstra versus Doc Rivers, blowout. If you're playing zone, you play zone to pack the paint. You play zone to force the offense to shoot from the perimeter. That's how you crack a zone, is by hitting jumpers, by hitting threes. So the Heat are on fire from 3 all game, and Doc switches up to a zone, he's out to lunch. I'm telling you, as overrated a coach you've ever seen. Eric Spoelstra, Doc Rivers, blowout. No other way to look at it. So the Heat kicked the crap out of them last night. And this Milwaukee team, no one is afraid of them, especially not the Heat. It would be great to play them in the playoffs. If they're the 3 seed right now, if the Heat can jump up to 6, that's another first round exit for the Bucks. It is. I mean, the Heat should be favored in that series. They won't be. But if we get to a Heat Bucks first round series, is there a single Heat fan that doesn't believe we're winning that series? I'm going to pray. I'm going to pray for this. I'm going to pray the Heat play the Milwaukee Bucks in the first round of the playoffs. Who is afraid of that Bucks team? The Heat should be favored if they play in the first round against the Bucks. Eric Spoelstra, Doc Rivers, blowout city. Nobody's afraid of that Bucks team. Let's be honest.